right, good morning or good afternoon, whatever time you guys are listening to us. Welcome back for the second episode of the Layman's AI podcast. I am Adam,
And my name is Brian.
and welcome back to everybody who is joining us for our second episode of the podcast. Tonight, we thought we would do something that is basically based off of a lot of the topics we want to talk about. We want to start diving in, we want to start talking about tools. But we felt before we did that, we really should talk about what some of these tools are. So tonight we're going to go over like two vocabulary terms in AI, being LLM and how that relates to generative AI. And then after that, we thought we'd take a deep dive into some of the most common AI tools that are being used right now, provide you guys with a couple examples of how to use them, and maybe even provide you with some tips on how to get started. So, um, Brian, what exactly, in your opinion, is an LLM, or what do you know about LLMs?
Well, an LLM is an acronym for Large Language Model. And typically, what we think about a large language model, we have ChatGPT is probably the pinnacle and the example right now
Hmm.
for everything. There's also Google Gemini, Anthropic's Claude is another popular one, Microsoft 365 Copilot, and Grok from XAI is also another one. And basically, everything that I do with a large language model is a Google search on steroids, essentially,
Hmm.
that creates content written to you based on what it finds in the Google searches. So if you're doing a Google search or, I think there's some other search engines out there like Bing, it'll list a number of articles right there. And basically, what the large language model does is it takes those articles that you've already searched and it breaks them down and gives you a synopsis of the articles and what have you. And there's a lot of interesting things you can do with an LLM. I know personally, I was doing a meal prep, kind of a personal experience
Okay.
here. I
Okay.
was trying to find the most wide range nutritional meal prep between breakfast, lunch, and my snack at work. Because usually reaching for some potato chips at work, and I was trying to like, you
Right.
know what, that's probably not a good idea. So I went back and forth with a large language model. I forget which one I used. I think it might have been Gemini, and we came up with the most nutritious meal plan I could possibly do that hits on every angle of the meal spectrum, all the way down to probiotics and iodine in my
Iodine.
meal prep. Yes, iodine.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I learned that iodized salt provides something that sea salt doesn't. I think a
Oh,
lot of people kind of like think, oh, healthy salt is sea salt. You can't do iodized salt. Well, the iodine actually does provide something. So it's kind of it's all the way down to that detail. I can't tell you all the ingredients off the top of my head. I have them written down somewhere. But
hmm.
anyway, that's something I did. Kind of like a personal example. Adam, any examples you had fun with an LLM?
Oh, when I first started using it, I used LLM to basically re-clarify my emails. That was my first usage of LLMs, and I adopted pretty quickly ChatGPT. Seemed to be the most common one that people were using at that time. And I do remember I didn't violate any data or privacy or anything like that. I always used the terms John Doe or anything like that, but I was truly amazed the first time I used ChatGPT, and I had to respond to an email. Being a high school principal, as you can imagine, you get some contentious email situations from time to time. And the one day I was not in a very good mood, so I wrote down a response in a Word document that was, let's just say, unprofessional response.
We've all been there.
And we've all been there. And then I took that, I copied it, and I pasted it without using the person's name. I put it into ChatGPT and I said, please make this response more professional for me. And it did a bang up job. I was very happy with it. It was very professional. Took out
Mhm.
the part where I challenged the person to a fight in the park. It took out the part where, I was willing to meet the person at their house if they didn't want to meet me at the park. I had it did very good job of, if you would like to discuss this, please give me a call at the following number. That's
Yeah,
fantastic. It did a good
yeah,
job of that.
that's yeah, probably a good idea not to challenge somebody to a fight in a professional email. I don't, I've never
Mhm.
done so myself, but that's probably something you don't want to do.
I found it a little
So yeah,
therapeutic. I got my anger
yeah.
out and I gave a
Hmm.
professional response, and it saved me time. I didn't have to revise very much out of it.
There you go. Yes, I know. Yeah, another thing I've done with an LLM, my bio for this podcast, I think I mentioned it in the last episode. I wrote down, what I've always written down in my, emails or, own personal essays or what have you. And I copy and pasted it into one of the LLMs and I said, how can you clean this up and give it a little more pizzazz or a little more professionalism? And
Hmm.
it gave me a few different paragraphs, my words, my exact words, but it kind of cleaned it up and gave it a little more refined, I'd say, with that. And it actually looked better, but you could still tell it was my words, just a little bit better. And I think that's uh, kind of the takeaway when if you're going to use an LLM to write something for you, the more you write yourself and the better you do before asking the LLM to help you, the better it's going to
Yes.
come out. I think that's kind of one of the big
Yes.
ones that we have to come away with here.
We definitely have to come away with that. And I think that's something you learn as you play with the tool as you go on. I think what we're talking about is prompting. Prompting is the command that you're giving the LLM. And the better you get at prompting, the better solution or answer you're going to get from the LLMs. Um, and I think it's important to know, we wanted to touch base on this. LLMs have actually been around for a long time. This
Hmm.
is not a new AI concept. And Brian, I want to take you back down memory lane. Now, if you guys
Hmm.
remember if our listeners remember from episode one, Brian and I went to school together starting in middle school. And while we were in middle school, we had computer class, which was on Macintoshes at the time. They weren't MacBooks, they were Macintoshes.
Yes.
And do you remember the teacher, Brian?
I've had a few of them. I can't
Okay.
recall off the top of my head.
He was very tall. His name was Mr. Patinsky. Awesome teacher. He was a great
Yes.
golfer. Everybody knew him as a golfer and a good computer teacher. And
Yeah, he
sometimes
was.
he would give us these papers to practice our typing. And so the
Mhm.
paper that he would give us to practice our typing would be a letter. So you would be writing a letter. So we'd be sitting there on our Macintosh and we would write a letter and we would say, Dear, DEAR, comma, or Dear so and so, comma. And then all of a sudden, our computer would stop and this annoying paperclip would automatically show up behind there. Do you remember Clippy?
Yeah, Clippy, he's become sort of a thankfully forgotten partner.
Yes, and thankfully forgotten is correct because I would just keep typing because I wasn't looking at the screen like every kid. I was looking down, making sure I was typing the letter verbatim like I was supposed to practice my typing. And then
Yes.
all of a sudden, it didn't get my first sentence because Clippy was on there saying, It looks like you're about to write a letter to somebody. Would you like
Hmm.
assistance with that? Well, Clippy was an early version of an LLM, not as powerful as the ones that we have today. These are the analogies I use sometimes when I explain to people, but Clippy was an early version of an LLM in terms of he
E
looked at the language you were putting in and then tried to guess what you wanted based on the language that you were putting in.
yeah, that's yeah, I do remember Clippy. I remember also like the earliest versions of Microsoft Word tried this as
Mhm.
well. Like you would type it up and it would kind of do an analysis and it was very bad at the beginning, which, any kind
Yes.
of technology you try to integrate, it's going to be really bad
Yeah.
at first. But
I have yet to meet a person that had a good experience with Clippy. Somebody who goes,
yeah,
"Oh, I remember that. I'd have been lost without him." Nobody has ever said that.
yeah. I mean, maybe we should bring Clippy back. Maybe
I,
we should give Clippy his redemption
You
arc.
know
That.
what? I when I give my workshops, I do. Does anybody remember this guy? And I have Clippy up there. And I said, well,
Hmm.
if he's there today, this is what he would look like. And it's a paper clip, but he's on steroids. We've used that analogy many times. He's got muscles. He's married. He has
Yeah.
a briefcase. He has a tie on. It's pretty
Nice.
funny. He's gotten much better than just the paper clip with the yellow background.
Yeah, I feel Microsoft kind of recognized that it was a little too early. The world wasn't ready for it, and I think
Hmm.
that's almost kind of how they sort of didn't get up on the AI game as quickly as some of the other people. I think if they would have made it down that road, they might have been actually ahead like this. I know ChatGPT right now is it's kind of the mecca of LLMs right now because everyone knows ChatGPT. It's the OG, so to say, as people
Right.
think it
I
is.
I try to tell people when comparing all these ones together, if you know anything about college football, like ChatGPT is kind of like the Alabama football for the last 20 years. They may not be
Hmm.
number one all the time, but it certainly is the program everybody's watching to see what they're
Hmm.
doing and how they're doing things and how they're operating. And as a result, it's a pretty steady program. But there's others, these other tools that we're going to talk about later on. they serve just as good a purpose, and sometimes it comes down to simply preference and how you prompt.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, like, really, these are just massive amounts of data. Like, they're
Yeah,
just like putting as much data. And this is kind of a theory with AI in general. Because if you don't know AI, what it's based off of, what's behind the scenes and anything, it is data. Like, you just need data, 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 more data. And it is becoming much more valuable as time goes on. And a lot of companies are starting to realize that, we have a lot of data here that could be monetized here. And that's why these LLMs, they just like search all these databases, and that's what could lead to some issues.
yeah, we were
As
we were bringing this up beforehand before we talked. We I'm sure many of our audience members are aware there is a thing called hallucinations where AI gives an answer that has absolutely nothing to do with your answer, or it's completely wrong. The more I've investigated that, the more I've realized I put in a not so good prompt because I didn't lead it down the right pathway. But you were telling me that there is something called dedicated language
Mhm.
models. Language, could you tell me
Yeah,
a little bit that helps with this issue that can come up?
yeah, dedicated language models are basically specialized language models. I think let me see here. Yeah, I looked up the definition refers to a language model that has been specifically trained or fine-tuned for a particular task, domain, or set of users rather than being a general purpose model. So when we're talking about LLMs, you have ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok, Copilot. That's basically saying, okay, I'm either going to Walmart or I'm going to Meijer or I'm going to Target or I'm going to Menards to a
Stores
sense,
that
like
have everything a person could possibly need.
generalization.
Yeah,
Yes. And
generalization. Your day to
when
day
you're,
stuff is chances are it's there.
yes, exactly. And you can get anything there. It might not be the best, but I know if I need something right now, I can go to Walmart or I can go to Meijer, I can go to Target, and bam, I can find something for me right there and then. That's kind of where that comes into play. Whereas a dedicated language model, it's like a specialty store. You're probably gonna pay a lot more for it, but it's the best of the best,
Hmm.
essentially. And that's where kind of a dedicated language model, like I kind of did a little use Google Gemini to tell me about a dedicated language model. And a couple examples they give, like a medical LM, like you have a medical
Okay.
dedicated language model. So it's only trained on medical journals, only trained on medical data, only trained on medical information. So that's the only data it's looking at. So when you ask, analyze this condition into, ChatGPT, it'll probably give you some good ones, but it's also referring to so much data that it can't really zero in on a great analysis.
Okay.
So that's why you should never, ever, ever use ChatGPT to self, what do they call it? Self-diagnose. Never,
Okay.
ever, 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 ever do that. I could
Right.
say ever a few more times on that, but
Yes, we
but if
certainly
you
don't want that.
yes, but if you were to, take a dedicated language model and only use, you know, verified medical data from prestigious, medical universities and what have you, I know that's kind of they're a little bit under fire right now, but we won't get into that. But
Hmm.
essentially, you could have a model that's could limit your hallucinations. You'll never eliminate them altogether, but
Right.
these dedicated language models, I think, are going to be, another big thing coming up where, you're going to limit those hallucinations there.
Hmm. I definitely think you're right about that, and it makes sense. And now I know we've talked about this. I know you haven't had much time to look at this, but there's another AI tool called Notebook LM, and what I like about that tool in particular is I get to upload what the AI tool I look at, what the AI tool I'm using looks at.
Mhm.
So I create a Notebook LM, and then I upload the research that I wanted to look at, and that's what it bases its answer off of, not the open internet. But it's still amazing to me how many times I still go back to these regular tools to get me started, even on Notebook LM. I go to the regular tools, Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT to get started. So
Yeah.
let's transition a little bit into this will be a little quicker to explain into generative AI. So
Oh.
generative AI, if I'm correct on this, is a larger form of AI. And it to simplify it,
Hmm.
it's a basic term of whenever AI makes something new, whether it's text, images, code, anything based on a prompt. If it's something new is created as a result of that, that's generative AI.
Yeah, basically, that's a lot of the LLMs actually have a generative model to them,
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
where you can say Gemini or Claude, write me a haiku about tacos, and it'll write you a haiku about tacos, and that's basically a generative AI. And a lot of them have their own image generation,
Hmm.
where you can say, give me an image of a dog licking a cactus or what have you, and you can get a dog
Uh-huh.
licking a cactus. I'm sure they're kind of frustrated how much computing power is wasted over nonsense like that.
Yes, and
But
I've been guilty of doing that. I
I
I
I've
love
only
cartoon images of cows fencing chickens in a barnyard in a cartoon-like fashion. It can be very fun at times.
yeah, and it is funny, but yeah, that's kind of where generative AI does. And now you have these generative AI models that are only trained to basically create images, create music, do any kind
Right,
of writing,
right.
and these are kind of, I would say, forms of dedicated language models as well,
Yeah, they're almost
because
specific generative AI specialists.
mhm,
Is the I guess the way I would put this.
essentially, yeah, and I know one of the big image generation generators is Midjourney. I think that's one of the more
Hmm.
popular ones. Adobe Firefly was another popular one. Um,
Leonardo AI was it's still to me to this day. I still think that's one of the most underrated, underappreciated image generators.
okay, yeah, that's
Uh,
a lot of them like that. I know there's also, I've used a few music generators myself. Suno was
mhm.
one I've used a lot of. I know there's a few other ones out there.
Suno, Udio, I think is one as well. I've used Sunio is fantastic. I've used it as well.
Hmm.
I know we've talked about that, and I've used. I think it's called Udio. There, it's
Okay.
pretty good as well. But again, it's really neat to see these genres. I want to make a connection between LLMs and generative AI
Hmm.
because based on our conversation, all LLMs are generative AI in one way,
Yeah.
shape, or form, but not all generative AI would be an LLM. So I guess the
Hmm.
way I would explain that in layman's terms is if you know a little bit about whiskey or bourbon, you know all
Hmm.
bourbons are whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon.
Hmm.
So I guess that's the
Yes.
way I would have to explain the LLM to generative AI relationship.
Yeah, metaphorically, I'd say that's a pretty good one right there. Because, yeah, it's generative AI. You can do it with LLMs, like I said, but then you can't ask Midjourney or Suno, "Hey, can you give me a good idea for a recipe?" Because they'll
Hmm.
you know write a song about good recipes or something like that. And
Yeah,
funny thing about it is the intro music for this podcast. I've actually used Suno myself to create that intro music, and I've
awesome.
actually tried to put some lyrics to it. I've tried to do the introduction. I put just the lyrics because you can type in your own lyrics to the song if you want to, or you could just have it write it themselves. And my typing is, "Welcome to the Layman's AI. Here are your hosts, Adam and Brian." And I kind of had the music. I'm like, all right, cool. Then all of a sudden, I start hearing Scott Steve, and I'm like, okay, there's a hallucination right there. It's not quite ready for a one-liner song because I guess like
Uh-huh.
when you have like either an instrumental, it just does the instrumentals. But when you have lyrics to a song, it's expecting lyrics throughout the entire song essentially at some point in
Hmm.
intervals. So it wasn't quite ready for a one-liner, so to
No, it's
say.
not, but people have had some fun with those. I don't know if you've heard any of the music ones where they took one of my favorite ones was they took the song Eminem "Lose Yourself,"
Hmm.
but they would use in generative AI. They changed the voice and the sound of it and made it as if Frank Sinatra sang it.
Mm,
And I
okay.
got to tell you that it was good.
Mm,
It was certainly it was very good. So I know that's out on YouTube somewhere. If you guys have a moment, if you like Frank Sinatra or like Eminem, you may want to give that song a try. It was very creative. It was very fun.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, some of these generative AIs solve or have the similar problems that LLMs have. They don't work all the time the way you want them to.
Yeah, that's I think that's really with any new technology. Any
Yeah.
brand new
Yeah.
technology you have like ever in the history of the world is going to struggle. Like, people take, electric cars and gasoline cars and everything. Gasoline cars, we've had over a century of research and development and, moving that along and everything. And they are where they are right now. And they have all these capabilities, but when you go back to the first vehicles, uh, they were garbage. They were just like
Hmm.
garbage machines, and people preferred, I'm just going to ride a horse because this is too much of a pain for me to learn. But then, as time went on, it was kind of funny. I read this meme on social media. It said, you know. Rich people used to own cars and poor people used to own horses. Now, poor people own cars and rich people own horses. So you kind of saw
Ooh,
that
I like that.
sort of like twist in that direction. And I think that's like where AI is right now. We're just kind of in some of the early adoptive stages of it,
Hmm.
and it's going to get better. That could be good, that could be bad. But I think like if we, as long as we have the proper guardrails in place, which would, you know, yeah, I hate to say it, but we really need to get comprehensive regulation as far as how AI can get used. Because if it becomes a Wild West, it's going to be it has some
Yes.
bad
I,
potential.
I
But
I mean, currently, I do believe it is the Wild West. Even though we just passed some legislation,
mhm,
uh, and I was happy to see that. But that's not enough at this point. I think you and I would agree upon that.
yeah,
But touching base on what you were saying, there's a YouTuber, and I can't remember his name right now. He always says when these AI tools come out, keep in mind that's the worst they're going to get. And
mhm,
recently, I don't know if you remember, my AI journey has been long enough. I remember when the first video generator came out about a year and a half ago. And we're only talking a year and a half ago. Sounds like it was 5 years ago. And they did that video of Will Smith eating spaghetti for the first time. So somebody that resembles Will Smith and he's eating spaghetti, and it resembles him at moments, and then it looks funny because the mouth is going too wide when it swallows the spaghetti and stuff like that. And then we look at image generation and video generation today. It looks like the actor Will Smith is eating spaghetti.
yeah,
It's very realistic now. We've come so far in just about a year and a half.
hmm
Where are we going to be a year and a half from now with this stuff? A little
yeah.
scary, a
That's
little exciting, a little bit of
hmm
everything.
yeah. But when it all comes down to it, I think you have to remember the more that you do before you start using these generative AI tools, and the more that you do before these LLM tools, the better your LLM or your generative AI is going to end up. Like I
Yes.
know Suno, you can upload some audio to it, and if you put in some good audio to that generator, you could potentially get a really, really good song right there. And if you just let it sort of do its own thing, it's all going to sound generic and it's all going to sound basically the same. And, another one kind of funny thing I did with Suno was I made a pancake playlist and just I don't know why I just wanted a whole playlist of pancakes for every genre imaginable. I mean, I'm talking I went, hip hop, 2000s crunk rap, 90s grunge, 80s glam rock, sea shanties,
Uh-huh.
you name it.
Yeah.
And it was fun, but if you really listen to the lyrics, they're all basically the same thing. They
Wow.
all basically put the same thing, and all I said was write this genre song about pancakes. That's all
Well,
I
now
did.
I'm thinking
All I
about the
did.
process of making pancakes, and I can't picture there's much deviation in the ways in which they're made. I mean, maybe some people
Yes.
add a couple different things here or there, but that is a very specific prompt and a very specific, uh, I don't know how to put it. It's a very specific thing that you put in there.
Yeah. So it was kind of basically like there was like the lyrics were kind of playful and everything, but they basically were all the same thing
Hmm.
after a while. So there really wasn't a whole lot of difference or anything like that. So that's where, you can also write your own lyrics, like I was saying before. And if you through and write your own lyrics, the song is going to come out a lot better.
Yeah. Well, let's transition into some of the big tools that people use for
Hmm.
LLMs and generative AI. Let's talk about the popular ones, and as we go through this list and go through a couple things, we'll mention some things that you could do with these. I know I would encourage every listener, if you haven't uh, played with AI at all, don't wait. Get started on it. Sign up for free. Get started. And just start trying to put in prompts, and we'll give you some examples of things you could do with these tools. So, um,
Yes.
let's talk about Claude first, because I feel like Claude through Anthropic is probably the most underrated and underappreciated by the
Hmm.
layman or the general public. When in
Yes.
actuality, you and I have basically said that is a strong LLM and a wonderful writing tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I know with Claude, I use that a lot. I took a class on how to code for AI, and I use
Yes.
Claude for like a lot of coding. And I actually did the paid for it one, and it actually does a pretty good job when you're talking about coding. And like I said, you still have to understand the coding concepts and everything. And if you understand the coding concepts, it is a better tool for you. If you don't understand coding, it's going to be difficult. But I was pretty happy with Claude. It had it's definitely being developed as its own specialty because, like I'll admit, sometimes I also had some fun with AI, as everyone does. And I would say, Claude, give me a little more bro in your answer, like bro it up a little bit. And Claude would respond, I understand. I'm here to be professional. So they have that personality baked
Yes.
into Claude. So you could definitely tell it's an LLM, but they definitely want to go in a very specific direction with it.
Yes, I would say that Claude, when I first started using it, I felt Claude was the best one at taking originally. I thought it was the best one at taking PDFs and summarizing them and condensing them. So if you have a long
Mhm.
research article that you're trying to get to the point of and you don't have time to read all 44 pages of, say, a research article from Penn State University, you can upload the PDF to Claude and it can bring up the key points to you, provide an outline for you, and then you can ask follow-up questions with it. I thought Claude was probably the best one at that, as well as generating emails. You know how when I got past my ChatGPT phase for generating emails, I also thought
Mhm.
Claude was great for that.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth looking at. I think they're going in their own direction. But yeah, the other one we can talk about Google's Gemini. This is
Yeah.
another popular one. And I've had good success with this one. I'll be honest.
Yes.
I've used it to kind of ask some questions and do a little bit of research and everything. And as with any LLM, you ask it some questions, it guides you there, and then you go do your own research and everything, go to different websites to like try to find the information. But I haven't done any kind of video or image generation with it. I've just kind of used it most
Yeah.
as a chatbot.
I'll share with you. Gemini, I find phenomenal, and I am surprised to this day that I am not a Gemini person. And the reason being is I've been a Google person since 2011. I've had a Gmail, I've had a Drive, I've used Docs, I've used Sheets, I've used everything. So I thought for sure when Gemini came out, I was going to be moving in that direction, and I just didn't. In my opinion, everything I can do on ChatGPT, I could do on Gemini. But
Hmm.
Gemini got themselves in a little bit of trouble when they started getting into that generative AI with their image generator in particular. I don't know if you remember that. They had some of the main characters in American history were the wrong race, and they took some heat for that because
I
it's
think I
generative
remember
AI. They
that.
they were making George Washington, I believe, African American, and then for a while they basically took down their image generation capabilities and
Hmm.
slowly brought it back. And just recently as last week, this probably is its own episode of itself. I believe there was some conference called the I/O conference, and Google just unleashed all these new AI capabilities with that
Hmm.
Gemini, including video generation that now has words. People can actually talk in them.
Hmm.
You tell it you give it a prompt and it'll actually make a video. Now it costs some money to do this. Some of
Hmm.
these aren't necessarily in the free plans. I feel like we should tell that to everybody. So. And now we're moving on to ChatGPT. ChatGPT, as I said earlier, it's kind of like the Alabama football of the AI world. It seems like every time everybody comes out with a big announcement and these great features, all of a sudden ChatGPT does something a little bit bigger. And I feel as if ChatGPT has a little more of a layman's following. I don't know if that's a good way to put it or not, because it seems to me like the big tech guys like to use Claude more, but that could be because of coding. But
Hmm.
ChatGPT sure seems to be the one that a lot of people, like myself, use consistently to a point that it's the one of the few paid subscriptions I actually have.
No, yeah, it's one of the popular ones. It's like the cool kid in school. He's got all the popularity. He's gonna be voted homecoming king. But yeah, I mean, ChatGPT's good. Not trying to minimize it or anything. It's just sort of the one that's the most popular right now. And they got some
Hmm.
good generative AI stuff. I know my brother-in-law actually. He just moved into a new house,
Hmm.
and he had this little cove. He's like, what can I do with this cove? And he took a photo and said, ChatGPT, what can I do with this? And it gave him some ideas for like a book shelving or a bench or anything like that. And
Hmm.
kind of gave him some like image generation to say, hey, you can try this, you can try this, and it gave him some inspiration right there. So it definitely has some cool features. I don't use it a lot, mainly because
Hmm.
I'm kind of like grandfathered into Google and Claude was like basically coding. So I'm sort of grandfathered into all that, and Copilot was sort of built into my Microsoft 365 subscription too.
Right.
So I no, don't have a lot of experience with ChatGPT, but this is de definitely one of the leaders, I'd say.
I'd say so. I would say I have a similar story to your brother-in-law. I actually
Hmm.
I needed to take a picture. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong to fix my son's bike. And come to find
Hmm.
out, he had tried to fix it prior to, and ChatGPT, the image generator, was able to figure out that he put the brakes on backwards,
Oh,
which is why it felt weird when he was driving. I didn't even notice it. I really
hmm.
didn't. I just
Interesting.
didn't even think about it. And ChatGPT picked it up very quickly. It says you're going to want to turn these correct. I knew I fixed the bike, but I didn't know that he had worked on it before I had gotten out there.
Ah, okay.
So I also feel like with ChatGPT, this is definitely one where you want to work on your prompting skills, that is the
Hmm.
commands, because I feel, and I don't like using that word, I really like to use data or factual information, but I do feel ChatGPT is more likely to hallucinate than the others.
Hmm.
But when you get your prompt right, I think it's more likely to get you the most accurate answer out of all these major platforms that have tons and tons of data attached to them.
Okay, yeah, that's yeah, and prompting like really, I think in general is the less you ask of it at once, the more accurate it's going to be. That's
Yes.
kind of what I've come to terminology or come to terms with, I should say, not terminology, is that if you ask it for like one line at a time, you're going to get a lot better results
Right.
as to what it is. And like you said with prompting. Um, the better you prompt, the better responses you're going to get, and you have to like kind of understand how to work with this tool because it's a tool, as everybody says.
Hmm.
It's not your employee, it's not your slave, it's not your assistant. It's a tool that you use yourself. And kind of a funny thing about ChatGPT, I think Sam Altman came out recently, and they were talking about people saying please and thank you to
Yes.
LLM
Guilty.
models.
Guilty. My
Yes,
Midwestern
and
upbringing, I use my manners when I talk to it. And
yes, he
continue.
said, yeah, and he was saying that it just wastes so much computing power behind the scenes. People saying that, and I really have a feeling that people honestly believe that if they say please and thank you to an LLM, that they're going to be spared in the machine apocalypse. I want to tell you right now, that's not going to do you any good. So don't do that.
Yes, I'm going to concur with what you're saying. I just use ChatGPT at some point. It almost becomes conversational. And I'm so used to our Midwest upbringing where we use our manners. We say please, we say thank you. And then I heard Sam Altman say that please don't put that stuff in there. You're wasting computation power. And I thought about it. I said, I guess he's right. I am wasting it. So now I try not to do it, but I'm still guilty of it, especially when it does exactly what I wanted to do. I am so quick to say, "Oh, thank you so much." It's
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it, but yeah, it's kind of like a little funny tidbit, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, ChatGPT, nothing that hasn't already been said about it. I think it's sort
right.
of a very good tool, and yeah, if you like ChatGPT, then by all means use it.
So to sort of wrap up here, because we're getting up about 35 minutes, something that we're going to do is we encourage all of our listeners to sign up for these tools. There are free versions of these, and something I've learned in my AI journey is never, never, never pay for anything AI related unless you've played with it for several days, several times, and you are certain that is the tool that you want to continuously use. I
Hmm.
must say that I've been burned myself many times. Unfortunately, I still get burned on occasion, And so use the free versions as much as you can until you become get and figure out which one works best for you. Sometimes maybe the way you prompt is better with one version in your opinion than the other version. So please play with it. Play with it. So what we're going to do, hopefully we can make it happen in our show notes. We'll actually have a link to just a standard Google Doc that you could take a look at that you can learn how to sign up for ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whether you're using a phone, a laptop, computer, it has those directions in there. So come on by and check those out when you have a moment. And then you want to have some fun with this, Brian?
We can have some fun with it. I kind of did a few of them off script over here. I asked a few different ones.
Uh-huh.
Let me see here. The first one I asked was Gemini, and for those of you obviously can't read, what we have here, the prompt that we're doing, demonstrate a prompt to put in that is geared for a married man. Help me write an apology text to my wife. I'm in the doghouse, but I have no clue what I did wrong. Tone should be
Hmm.
light, charming, and slightly self-depreciating, acknowledging her frustration while gently fishing for hints about my mysterious offense. Keep it short, sweet, and under 100 words. Sixth grade reading level, with a touch of humor to melt her heart and maybe get me out of trouble. That is the exact prompt I copy and pasted, and here's Gemini's response. Hey, beautiful. I'm so sorry for whatever mysterious thing I did to land myself in the doghouse. My brain is truly stumped. Was it the socks? The dishes? Did I accidentally agree to watch a rom-com without protest? Please send a tiny clue so I can make it right. Missing your smiles.
Okay, so he Gemini did pretty good on that one.
Yes,
So
yes,
if you we're not going to do too much on prompting because we're wrapping up the episode. But if
yeah.
you notice, what was interesting about this is we said that we basically identified some parameters for Gemini to take a look at, such as you are responding as if you are a married man who did something wrong but don't know what you did wrong. I'm sure that doesn't happen often at all in any marriage between a man and a woman. I'm sure that doesn't happen often, but
No, no comment.
no comment. Yeah. I think we all know what that means.
Yes.
So, anyways, if you guys have a chance, those are type things you can do. You can have fun with this. I do know a guy who did have ChatGPT write an apology for his wife because he left the garage door open. And what's funny is when he sent it to her, she actually responded, ChatGPT wrote this, didn't it? And I was there when it happened. It was pretty funny. He laughed.
Hmm.
They had a good laugh, and he got out of it. Look, I think he did, or at least I think he got out of it. But
Yeah, well, who knows at this point? So,
that's right.
yeah, you keep it kind of keep between there. But yeah, it's a fun thing. But I will say, be careful on how much you do because it
Hmm.
does become obvious if you use ChatGPT. And there is a thing called now GPT-0. I don't know if you're familiar with this tool.
I
It
am.
is actually a tool that takes what you wrote and can tell if and how much generative AI helped write this for you. And I think that's a critical tool, so be careful with that. It's out there.
Absolutely. And we're going to hope for time. We're going to hopefully tell you great ways in which you can use AI as a tool and safely write your own content so that you're not getting in trouble with these things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 2.
Absolutely. I think we did a good chat about LLMs. Hopefully, all you listening out there enjoyed the little conversation that we had. And yeah, hopefully it kind of gives you a new perspective on what an LLM and what generative AI is. But either way, we are now completing this podcast. Thank you for listening to The Layman's AI. My name is Brian,
And I am Adam.
and we will see you next week. Have a good night.
Thank you.